Hello and welcome back to another episode of All Things Girl World. In today's video, we're doing a character and style analysis on our favorite corporate girlfriend, Miss Joan Clayton. We will also be exploring Joan's popular and well-kept Los Angeles home because after all, we did spend a lot of time there. Joan Clayton is a fictional character from the UPN sitcom Girlfriends. The show, created by Mara Brock Akil, premiered on the UPN network in the year 2000 and ran for 8 seasons before being canceled in 2008. Girlfriends follows the lives of Joan Clayton, Toni Childs, Maya Wilkes, and Lynn Searcy as they navigate life, relationships, friendships, and careers. When we are first introduced to Joan, she's a 29-year-old attorney at the prestigious law firm of Goldberg, Sweetelson, McDonald, and Lee. Joan's career as an attorney is a significant part of her identity, and throughout much of the show, we get to see the trials and tribulations she faces while working in a predominantly male industry. Seeing that Joan is extremely successful, motivated, intelligent, and her role as an attorney requires her to be good at problem solving or at least good at avoiding any future problems, it's no wonder that she's the go-to girlfriend of the group. I would consider her as the mother, the responsible one, and the glue that holds everyone together.
Means of the problem, it's gotta be with me. Are you absolutely sure you don't want to talk to Joan about this?
Joan's friends would often come to her for a solution to their problems because Joan is not only supportive and always eager to help, but she gives honest and constructive criticism when and where it's needed. While it may not have always been received well and even placed Joan in the middle of some uncomfortable situations, it kept her friends dependent on her for that loving honesty and guidance they knew they couldn't get anywhere else. We've seen her be honest with Toni about how poorly she was handling her love triangle with Greg and Dr. Spencer. And when Greg dumped Toni once he found out about Dr. Spencer, where did Toni run to? Joan's house. We've also seen her on Maya's case about her fling with Stan despite being married to Darnell, which we will definitely dive deeper into that when we discuss Maya. But once Darnell found out about Stan and put Maya out, whose doorstep did Maya show up to in tears? Joan's. When Yvonne left William at the altar, although the wedding ceremony took place at Joan's, whose home did he find comfort in to grieve the loss of his relationship? You guessed it, Joan's. One thing I loved about Joan's approach to the misfortunes her friends faced is that she let them have their moment, but she didn't allow them to stay in it. She encouraged them to either right their wrongs or move on and use this experience as a teachable moment. Despite all of these amazing qualities, Joan was also not perfect. In fact, I would consider her to be a very anxious person and could sometimes come off as a little hyper. Being the responsible one or the mother of your friend group also comes with a price. I feel like Joan's friends needing her all the time started to deplete her, which may have added to her anxiety. I would even go so far as to say it started to become a bit manipulative. Yes, she ended up in therapy mainly due to her friendship with Toni, but we all saw the episode where her therapist concluded that Joan was basically a people pleaser who struggled with boundaries and exercising the word no with all her friends. While Joan was able to give advice to her friends on how to handle their situations, she struggled with how to properly handle her own a lot of the time. She had this issue where she would say she was okay with something that clearly showed she wasn't, and she would let it drive her crazy. What comes to mind is season 1, episode 1, when Toni asked Joan if she would be okay with Joan's ex-boyfriend Charles accompanying her to Joan's 29th birthday celebration at Joan's house. Now, why would Toni even be entertaining the ex of her best friend is another conversation, but Joan, why would you say yes if you knew you weren't okay with it? In my opinion, that is a strong boundary you should have had because, what? Speaking of Charles, we cannot do a video on Joan and not mention the many dating experiences we've seen her go through. Joan was a hopeless romantic who longed for love and looked at every man she encountered as a potential husband. In season 1, episode 1, as Joan reflects on life in her 20s, she mentions how she expected to have it all by now, the career, the marriage, and the kids. But as we know it, our attempts to plan out our lives doesn't always go as planned, and much like Joan, you may end up wondering where you went wrong and if you'll ever find the one. I will say though, I did feel like Joan self-sabotaged a lot during her interactions with men. It's like on one hand, she knows what she wants and she doesn't mind standing 10 toes down, even if she's made to feel like her expectations are unrealistic. But on the other hand, I wanted to see her relax a little and just let it flow. She had a tendency to want control over every aspect of her relationships, and sometimes that can be overbearing and smothering. In her race against time and in an act of desperation, Joan ended up asking Aaron to marry her later in the series, which she ended up regretting, of course. As cringy as it was, I'm glad it didn't run Aaron away. Instead, he ended up proposing to Joan the right way, surrounded by friends and family. This is something that Joan has wanted since we met her, and after many failed dating experiences, she finally got it. Throughout the show, Joan has given us a lot of fashion inspiration, so let's talk about it. Joan Clayton's style was timeless and sophisticated. She spent the first half of the series as a lawyer, but she didn't dress like your typical lawyer. She still kept it professional with, let's say, a blazer and matching dress pants or a skirt, but she might give you a sheer or chiffon top underneath. Even though Sharon Farley did give Joan grief about her work attire, I thought Joan looked great. It's not like she was walking around exposing the office. Her sheer tops were always accompanied by some sort of covering, and you can always count on her to give you a cute stiletto heel. She looked clean, polished, and stylish. It was also refreshing to see her rock big hoop earrings and her big curly natural hair. When it was time for a night with the girls, Joan might opt for a halter neck top or a dress that hugged her curves, and she definitely wasn't afraid of color, which I am always in favor of. I would also like to add that Joan looked really great in green. I noticed a few of my favorite looks worn by her were always in green. Costume designer Tracee L. Beverly is responsible for the fabulous looks from the show. Stacey is a Chicago native with over 20 years of experience in the entertainment industry and has worked on shows like Girlfriends, All of Us, The Game, and Blackish. I also wanted to acknowledge Joan Clayton's Closet and Every Outfit of Girlfriends on Instagram for capturing some of these memorable looks that we loved from the show. Now listen, Joan Carol Clayton cannot be as fabulous and successful as she is and not have the home to match. Aside from their favorite spots to go have lunch or drinks like Davis's 847 restaurant or the classy Blue Bar Lounge, Joan's house was my favorite set on the show. The atmosphere was very grown and sexy and sophisticated. You can tell that Joan took pride in having such an organized and well-kept home. In the front area of the house, there was a lot of natural lighting with the large windows and French doors that aligned the back patio. Her living room showcased a large built-in shelf with a lot of different accent pieces and books. But y'all, I hated that couch, even for the year 2000. I was happy that they switched it up later in the series. Much like Dee Dee Thorne, who I also did a home analysis on, Joan hosted a lot of events at her home as well, like birthdays, holiday gatherings, weddings, a typical girls' night in, and more. Much of Girlfriends was filmed at Paramount Studios in Los Angeles, with the exception of some exterior shots that had to be filmed on location, like the outside of Joan's home, which we saw a lot throughout the show. Although this house is currently off the market, so I will not be mentioning the physical address in this video, you can certainly see the inspiration that was pulled from the interior of this home to create what will become Joan Clayton's home on the set of Girlfriends. Between the colored trimming around the doors and windows, the wooden finishes, the large windows that allow for tons of natural lighting, when I first saw the interior of the actual home, I had to do a double take. Although Joan is a fictional character, when you're watching Girlfriends, she's like your homegirl. She's beautiful, stylish, and quite entertaining to be around. She's also that friend that you can learn a lot from just by spending time with her. She's successful, intelligent, and has the resources to expose her friends to a different lifestyle, which we will definitely get more into when we discuss other characters and dynamics of the show. Let me know in the comments how you felt about Joan's character overall, how she handles her relationships or interactions with men, and do you feel like her friends started to take advantage of her just a little bit? Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will talk to you all in the next video.